So Steven, I'll let you introduce yourself real quick.
Hey everybody. It's great to be here. I'm always impressed, by the Sonic fan base. Aaron's been involved with Sonic for much longer than I have, but I've always, admired all the sort of creativity and you guys coming together to create these sort of events and just the sheer amount of discussion and artwork and just great stuff online. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for, loving Sonic as much as we do and putting forth all of the great stuff that you guys do in artwork and videos and everything. So, give you guys a round of applause for that, because I think it's great. So being the first, Sonic Revolution sort of event, Aaron and I, we were discussing, was it like a week and a half ago again, because we wanted to come down, but we weren't sure because, as you may know, E3 was this last week, and that's generally a pretty tiring experience, to say the least. It's just a lot of standing and doing interviews and demos over and 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 over. Fortunately, we flew back on Friday, and we had a day at home up in San Francisco, and then we jaunted on the plane, woke up, I think, like 5 o'clock in the morning, I think. So I apologize if I am a little bit tired, but I'll try to answer the questions as coherently as possible. But as Aaron said, it's anything you guys want to ask. It doesn't necessarily be about Sonic Boom. I can answer questions about 3DS, the cartoon, the Wii U, anything about Sonic Boom. I can give you my personal opinions on Sonic and things like that, and then Eric can fill in. So I don't know how you want to do the questions or anything like that, raise hands or whatever. But feel free to ask away. I have several Sonic games, but the one really that always was a fond memory for me is the first Sonic Adventure. And the reason for that is, back in the day I used to be on the press side of things, and I used to write for a PlayStation magazine, ironically, for quite a few years, thanks. But at nights I actually helped form a Dreamcast website with some friends called Dreamcast Life, and we used to use, because we used to go to Japan and other places a lot, and we used to go and film and go to the SEGA New Challenge conferences and things like that and film stuff, so I was really excited about the Dreamcast. Went to Japan for the launch of the Dreamcast and everything, and actually wrote a fact about the Godzilla VMU game, if anyone ever played Godzilla VMU game. I remember distinctly waiting for Sonic Adventure, and I had gone, because I was in California and my parents lived in Oregon. I was going back for holiday, and I had it shipped. I didn't know the timing, so I had it shipped, the Japanese version of Sonic Adventure, to Oregon just in case. And so I got there, and I hadn't gotten there, and I was so excited, but literally every day I was just sitting there waiting for it to come, waiting for it to come. And then it came, and I just spent the rest of my vacation in front of the TV playing that game. So it was just, the transition to that 3D and on the Dreamcast and just my excitement, it's that experience, I think, is probably one of my most favorite, and that's why I love that game so much.
It's a good answer, oh man. My favorite game would be divided into 2 eras, really is how I would do it. If you're asking like favorite game of the old ages, the Sega Genesis, I would have to say Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Yeah. And though my story really isn't quite as good as Steven's there, mine is really just more like we got a Genesis, and that was like what my little brother and I had wanted for the longest time, right? We wanted it for Christmas. We didn't get it that year for Christmas, and that was like heartbreaking. But the next year, we did get a Genesis, and then not long after, we ended up getting Sonic 3 and Knuckles. And my little brother was always Tails. And as you guys know, Tails is great in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and in Sonic 2, because Tails is the guy that gets everything done, and you lose no rings. It's like, there's a bad guy over there, all right, Tails, go get it. Oh, Tails, you got killed. Well, you took out the bad guy, so I'll just run ahead. Thanks, man. Thanks, Tails. And Sonic 3 and Knuckles was so cool because it was like, it was, 2 games locked onto each other, and the amount of content was so huge. But I also really liked that first moment when you get all of the Super Emeralds with either Tails or Knuckles, and you go, wait, there's a Super Tails? What? And then all these little flickies come on screen and start destroying all the robots, and it's just such an amazing moment. So I love Sonic 3 and Knuckles as one of my older games. If I was looking towards the newer generation, Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, I thought was a great one. And most recently, Sonic Generations, really love that one. So I totally cheated and answered 3 times. That was 3 games, I know.
All the Sonic games are my favorite. Sure, even 06.
Really good music. Right? No, like seriously, really good music in that game. Yes, let's take another question from the audience right here.
Alright. You can make one spin-off game centering around one other Sonic character aside from Sonic himself. What character do you choose and what type of game are they in?
I already know what I'm going to say, so I'm going to give it to Steven. Well, since Steven went and spoiled it already, thanks, Steven. My game would be a first-person horror puzzle shooter game featuring Big the Cat. You want to kickstart that? I'll see what we can do. Steven's still thinking, so I'll go into more detail about my game while he thinks. In this game, Froggy has been kidnapped by Alex Kidd. Alex Kidd is unhappy because Sonic has completely taken his mascot status, and so in order to get revenge, he leashes out on one of the Sonic characters, but completely misses the fact that not many people know about Big over Sonic. That's kind of Alex's mistake. Sorry, Alex. You got anything yet? Do I need to keep giving more details?
General idea. I like Tails a lot. I'm a big fan of Tails. I think that an interesting game would be one at the beginning where he's at the doctor's office and he's sort of diagnosed. He finds out that he's deathly allergic to bees. And Charmy sort of is in here and he's like, I want to be friends with Tails. And, you know, he's always chasing Tails through the game, and Tails is like, you gotta get away from me because I'm allergic, but Charmy doesn't know that. And so it's the whole sort of this endless chase throughout the world as Charmy is, player 2 is Charmy and Tails is player 1. There you go.
So it's like player 2 can't physically touch player 1, right? You have to like keep them from touching each other throughout the entire game. That's a really cool concept. We should, can one of you guys make that game for us? There you go, fans. The challenge has been laid out. That's the game that we need you to make. Let's take another question from the audience. All right, well, we did one on this side. We're going to jump to this side in the back there. Yep.
I have a question. What's your guys' thoughts and opinions on the video game competition right now? Talk about like E3, what went on?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Personally, I'm rooting for the Dreamcast still. Ever since '99, it's still going in my eyes. Some people claim that I'm blind and that the SEGA killed the system or something. They don't know what they're talking about. Come on, those are rumors. Don't trust the internet. Jeez, guys. No, but seriously, I think it's kind of exciting to see the console wars heating up a bit, like we saw last year too, but there was kind of this lull, right, where it's like it was the end of the PS3 and the Xbox, and it was just kind of getting quiet. And so seeing the companies getting back into it and kind of making fun of each other and all of that stuff, it reminds me a bit of the old Sega Nintendo stuff back in the day. But I just personally kind of like watching it. I think it's just really fun to see, and it pushes each side to do better and better to kind of one-up the competition. So I think it's exciting.
I can't really comment too much on what's going on at E3. I had like 22 minutes of free time each day, which I tried to eat a chicken Caesar salad as quickly as possible. It's true. That's true, actually. It's very sad because normally I've gone to every E3 except 2, and I love going to E3 because I love to check out all the games and stuff like that. But this time, because this little project thing we got going on, it was difficult to get away. But I agree with Aaron. Like, I love that I think this generation is going to be pretty exciting. I think we're returning to a little bit of the sort of the poking fun and jabbing, and everyone's being a little bit more sophisticated. It's not directly like, you know, Genesis does what Nintendo, but you know, I think in their own way, Sony and especially Microsoft are sort of pointing and poking at each other, jabbing where they can. So I like that. I mean, it makes it a little bit fun. You know, I don't subscribe necessarily to the whole fanboy stuff, but it's like, it's kind of cool to have a console you root for, or whatever, you know, developer or company you root for, and it kind of brings excitement, right? It kind of brings a little bit of that back and forth that's been passive a little bit, I think, last generation in some ways. So I'm just excited. I mean, there's a lot of great games that are coming out that I'm really excited, and more so a lot of independent games, which is great. Like, we're seeing that now, a lot of the indie games, you know, just going back to the Dreamcast, the sheer number of like shooters and RPGs and stuff that are still coming out for the Dreamcast, whether it's Kickstarter or on their own, which is awesome. The fact that you can still, you know, order a Dreamcast game from an indie developer is awesome. So I think this is just a great time for gaming overall. So it's great. Next question.
I got a question.
What's that? Let me get this guy. How about in the orange here?
Since we have Sonic Boom coming up, what is your favorite and least favorite out of all the Sonic shows that have happened, and why?
Oh my God.
Are you passing on this question, Steven? You can pass on a question. I think it's fair to say pass if you don't want to answer it. I'll think of something.
I feel that you're more eloquent with your words.
Okay, let's see. So my favorite, all of the animated TV shows, for me it's personal bias. It's just the one that I grew up watching. That's the reason this is my favorite, so nothing like against the rest. And it's totally not because I saw it on the agenda for today. Sonic Saturday Morning, I sat in. With the Freedom Fighters and the darker storyline, and like everything's pretty terrible in terms of like how their situation is faring in that entire show, and it's very dark. But I like that they're always, you know, it's very optimistic, and you kind of watch tales grow in that show. And there's a lot of really cool things that happen with the characters. The one that I saw the least of, I wouldn't say it's like my least favorite, but the one that I didn't see much of was Sonic Underground. But I do know that there's a lot of people out there that really like love Underground, and especially and especially the opening theme song. I watched someone do like a karaoke of that at Summer of Sonic, my very first year that I attended, and it was magical, let me tell you. So yeah. For us, do you want to answer? Should we just move on to the next one?
I think I would answer.
I'd probably say, well, I mean, the one I watched the least is Underground, because that seems a little bit different for me. But, you know, Sonic X and Saturn was definitely, I remember fondly as far as watching them. And even actually every so often I'll pop them on Netflix. I think almost all the episodes for all three of those are on Netflix now. So if you're not a subscriber to Netflix, you should get it just for Sonic cartoons. You want to choose? Go ahead.
Blue shirt.
If you read the novel series, so what's your favorite issue or favorite story arc?
Oh my gosh. You know, I have to admit that I'm very sporadic with the comics. I'll read it here and there, and it's more so because, you know, Archie will send us a bunch of collections of stuff. I did like the whole Mega Man sort of crossover recently, because that's the one that actually had like we actually got like all the issues and I think the trade paperback too. I thought that was very cool that they did that. I liked a lot of the stuff in there. And I'm always curious, you know, to see where the Tails doll shows up. Because it's, you know, it's amazing how that has sort of spiraled and gotten its own sort of thing, and it's always a neat surprise to me where he shows up in just weird places.
All right, so when I was a kid, I grew up on the original issues, like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, on and on, up to the Metal Sonic arc, I think was 25, and the, was it End Zone Doomsday? Was the Endgame, that was what it was, which was the arc leading up to the 50th issue. And those will always stay in my mind. It's like, wow, this is like some crazy stuff happening. And Sally got like killed in those, right? Like it kind of killed and then comes back or something, right? Spoilers, sorry. But it was pretty dark for this comic that I'm reading at like the age of 12 or 11, however old I was. I was just really enthralled with it. More recently, I was really excited for the Sonic Universe issue that was based around Sonic All-Stars Racing Transformed. Did anyone read that?
Yeah.
That one was fun because I got to work on that with Archie. So I was the guy at SEGA that got to go to SEGA Japan and be like, all right, so here's the script, we got to get this approved, and here's the early like pencils, and like, let's get that approved. Oh, we got to make these changes, and it was crazy because we're working with all these different people. Because you've got Vice from Skies of Arcadia, you've got II from Super Monkey Ball, you've got Danica Patrick in there. Like it was like a licensing nightmare when you think of like all the different people that have to approve this, but. It was so cool when it finally came together, and so I thought that was a really, really cool issue too, and definite props to Archie, man. I love the work that those guys do, and they're always such happy people when we meet them at like the shows and get to talk with them. So go Archie, love you guys. Yep.
Okay, this is a question for Gary Spring. He asks why they changed Sonic iconic shoes, but kept Knuckles' Lego design shoes.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. So the whole reason, I mean, I don't know how many of you guys have followed the redesigns that we did for Sonic Boom. It is, sometimes still a polarizing thing, I'm sure, especially Knuckles. I knew this was the way it was gonna be, and it's tough because we've been looking at these characters for over 20 years. It's not an easy change. It's not an easy thing. He's gone through a couple iterations and minor changes over the years, but our goal was really, in some ways, to try to further expand the Sonic audience. Quite honestly, not to alienate anyone or anything like that. And so we spent a lot of time. A long time looking at those characters over and over and over again, and we try to remain sort of true to the essence of the character designs, but we really wanted to adjust them so that from a silhouette perspective, and I'll get back to the question, but I'm going to derail a little bit, and the key and crucial thing is that the silhouettes, right? So if someone who's not really familiar with Sonic, I don't know, I think there's 6 people in the world that aren't familiar with Sonic, but for those 6 people, if they look at these characters, we wanted them to make sure that they understood who these characters were, what their role was in the team, right? Especially for Sonic Boom in relation to the cartoon and the games. This is an ensemble cast now. It's not just Sonic. And I know Amy and the other characters have been around, but they've always sort of been like a half step behind, right? Sort of like Tom Cruise and whatever his wife is at the time. Oh, sorry. I was thinking out loud. It was very crucial that you look at him and you look at, like, Tails, for example, and he's got the aviation goggles now, and he's got the belt, the reinforced belt, and he's generally holding a wrench. And, you look at that, and even if you're not familiar with Tails, you're like, yeah, he's like a pilot guy, and he's going to be a tinkerer guy, right? He's got tools and stuff like that. The thing with Knuckles is that, in the classic games he has the big hands, but his scale-wise ratio, it's it's the same as Sonic, pretty much. And that's a tough sell to kids. When you show it to kids who are not inherently that familiar with Sonic, it's hard for them to sort of understand that strength perception. Yes, he has the bigger hands, but it's still a weird thing for them because they're used to the age of like the Incredibles and the Avengers and things like that, where it's very clearly defined who the big guy is, the strong guy. We need Knuckles to be that in a very clear way if that's the sort of player that you like. And it's a similar archetype. It's like in Team Fortress and WoW, it's in many, many sort of types of games, that brooding sort of strong guy. But we didn't want to change. We wanted to change him as much as we need to, but not much. So we really pulled our hair out. I had a lot more hair back then. Over just decisions like what are the shoes going to be like, and what color, and Sonic arm color, and which people point out, and just like little quills, and people think, why add little quills and stuff like that? That takes like a month to decide that. So it was just very crucial for us to really get that messaging across, like who is Sonic, who is Knuckles, who is Amy, who is Tails, and get that across to people who are not so familiar, but still retain sort of the essence of them. So we tried to not change more than we needed to, and in the cases of Knuckles, and you know, we didn't want to adjust his shoes much. We just adjusted his size already. Sonic really, for the most part, is strengthened out of the bed. He's got a little more quills, and he's got the neckerchief and the sports tape to emphasize his speed stuff. But as far as individual choices, like I said, we try to retain the key components of the team. It wasn't something that we did lightly. I say this to you fans wholeheartedly. Some of the decisions as far as what we did the characters took a year to decide on. So it wasn't something that we decided on like a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I was looking at those characters for a long time. And we kept going back and forth. And also you have to keep in mind that it has to work within the confines of the TV show and the 3DS and the toys and stuff like that. So we had to keep a lot of that stuff. Sometimes we would make choices and decisions about how these characters would be, and it's like, the licensing guys say like, well, that's really tough to do, right, in the licensing line, or it's tough to represent this in the cartoon. So, when asked questions like, why did you keep some stuff and why didn't you retain it, we only tried to change stuff that we felt was really crucial to change, and that's sort of how we came up with the character designs that we did.
One of the things that I thought was really interesting is you guys know Sonic's arms are blue in Sonic Boom, right? But the funny thing is, if you go up to somebody on the street and you're like, what color is Sonic the Hedgehog's arms? At least half of them will say blue. That's right, because when you picture Sonic in your mind, you're like, oh, he's a blue hedgehog, therefore his arms are blue. And I thought that was really interesting because a lot of the fans noticed that and they're like, oh, his arms are blue, whether they liked it or not. But then a lot of people were like, weren't they always blue? And I thought that was just a really interesting kind of piece that came out of all of that. So really good question. That was the hard one. We knew that one was going to come up. So thank you to whoever asked that one. I think that was from online. So thank you. Since we only have a bit of time left, we're going to try and rapid fire through some more questions to get some done for you guys. Right here.
So I guess my question is for both of you. What advice can you give to someone who wants to have Sonic or video games as a profession, as a career? Because Sonic's what inspired me to want to get into video games, so I tried studying computer science at college, and that didn't turn out so well, so now I'm in business and about to graduate, and I'm worried that I may not be able to get into the video game industry, so I want to ask if you try any advice for people like me who are in their early 20s, but want to do something video game related.
What kind of business? Just in general?
Just information systems.
Okay. So, the good news is the industry is probably not what a lot of you expect. Some of you imagine the video games industry is like you walk into this beautiful lobby adorned with golden rings and there are palm trees and it's like, oh, and it's like, welcome to SEGA, and the doors open and Sonic's there like with a hot chocolate for you, like, hey man, welcome. At least that's what I had imagined when I went in for my interview about over 6 years ago. And the video game industry, the good news is there are people of all sorts of professions. There are people that have business degrees. There are people that have IT degrees. There are people that have finance degrees. All of these things are important for a company to run. So a company like SEGA, a company like Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft, you name all of them, right? They're going to have these people that maybe didn't go to school for game design, but that are working in the industry. I actually studied PR when I was in college for a little bit, and what do you know, like when you end up doing a camera interview on a live stream or something like that, it's like, hey, that PR class was actually really helpful, or the speech and debate course I took in high school was really helpful. And so there's a lot of ways that you can find your way into the industry with degrees that you may not think would apply. So the best advice I can give you, though, and I've given this to a few other people, is don't give up. That's the best advice that I can give you, because the video games industry is not really that easy to get into sometimes, and it's about knowing the right people, it's about having the right resume and being really impressive with all the stuff that you've got. So make sure that whenever you do submit your resume, that it is as robust as possible, so that when they're looking at we've got 200 candidates here, you want yours to stand out, so they go, this guy, let's get him in for an interview. So it may not happen the first time, it may not happen the 5th time, you never know, right? But don't give up is the best advice I can give you, and with that, I'll pass it to Steven.
The other 2 points I'd probably add is, and this is a tough one, because a lot of people want to get in the games industry and they're not quite sure what they want to do, but it's hard to go in and not know. You need to be very focused. So there's a lot of different professions and fields, and so I would suggest really digging into sites, like sites like Gama Sutra that cover the industry, things like that, and read articles and see what your particular sort of talent or interest lies in. Because when you say I want to be the games industry, that's a myriad thing. That's like from the guy that makes the banner on E3 in the wall to the the QA guy or the guy who's designed the UI for the game. Right? It's such a large field of stuff. Like Aaron went down community stuff and he's doing marketing down. I'm doing production stuff. So I would suggest really find out what interests you, what aspects of the game industry interests you, even if it's a couple things, and really read up on that and really understand it. And the other thing is, of course, which is always the classic thing, and it's still honestly true, is going into a QA sort of position. QA is such a vital thing to the game, but also it's a really good way to understand how games get made, right? Like, you see the games in the worst possible state that they can be in, and you really, with your interactions with the production team and other groups, really come to understand all the little bits and pieces and stuff. So, I would really narrow down what you want to do, and if you can, even temporary, try to get a QA position just so you can get your foot in the door and sort of understand what makes games.
Okay, guys, we have 2 minutes left. You ready for the rapid fire? Yeah. Okay, let's go to the back. Yeah, merch guy.
I know that there were several rejected designs, like one involved Sonic being like lizard thing or something, or with scales, or...
Like the original designs?
Yeah. Is there ever a chance we'll ever see that concept art?
Yeah.
That is tough to say. It's probably locked up in the vaults at SEGA Japan somewhere. Let's take another question from this side in the back. Yeah.
It's more saying or like a question, but when are we going to get Shenmue free?
I was like, I really hope no one's going to ask that question. I don't have any news on that one. I played and beat the first 2 games and loved them though, so I know that feel, man. I know that feel. Let's take another question right here.
Are there going to be any other playable characters aside from the main 4 in Sonic Boom?
No, let's just say that right now, I have to just be careful how I say stuff. The main thing is really we're focusing on the Wii U on those 4 characters, and then on the 3DS, Styx. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Styx, the new character. Yeah, Styx the battery. Yeah, exactly. She's awesome. So she is actually the 4th playable character in the 3DS one. So at least we're introducing another character. We're really focusing on that 4 and the messaging of those 4. That's all I can sort of say right now. And 4 key characters. It took a lot of time just to develop those guys out and their abilities and stuff, because they have a lot of move sets and things like that. So at least as far as the answer to your question right now, we're just focused on the 4 Amy's Tails, Sonic Knuckles, and then Styx on the 3DS version.
So, as we are out of time, I'll ask one more question to you guys, since Steven and all the teams at both BRB and Sanzara have put a ton of time and effort into getting those characters playable. You guys for a long time were like, we want more playable characters. So are you guys really excited to finally be playing as Tails, Knuckles, Amy, and now Styx, as well as Sonic? There you go, Steven. All right, well, thank you guys very much. Yep, we appreciate it. And with that, we're going to pass it off to Shane for the next part of the show.